mics, and that's the master.
Yeah.
14.
I'm trying to see if I'm wondering why there's no tone or nothing.
Yeah, it's not.
I did an hour ago.
No, you did it.
We just did it.
Okay, I believe it.
But if it goes bad, this is quick question for you. When the students are interested, there's
It did come to this. So you can
or maybe when they're doing this, they're going to raise that these building used to it because they're going to be doing it. So I want them to just keep it on the Zoom just can't. Okay?
Yeah, somebody wants to talk. Oh, yeah.
To wyłączę w telefonie, nie wiem na dlaczego.
Versus packing tonight. That's right.
Let's get their doodling car. I do stick figures. The days No, they wouldn't let me in for that. I wanted to sign up for it, but they didn't. They did this year. Yeah, they pushed everything back. I had 3 So how many trainings?
Uwaga.
Nobody needs to sell.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. My name is Steve Salsky, and I teach 7th grade social studies here at Lincoln Hall. Next to me is Mallory Burke, who teaches 7th grade humanities also here at Lincoln Hall. We want to say that we are very honored and grateful to be part of this event as the forum moderators. We would like to begin this evening by thanking the Lincolnwood School Board, the Lincolnwood School District 74 Board of Education, and the administrators for hosting this event. In addition, we want to particularly thank our 7th grade students who have taken the time to volunteer tonight for their assistance this evening.
Tonight, we will be hearing from 6 candidates who are vying for the Lincolnwood Board of Trustees elected position. Each candidate will be given the opportunity to respond to questions from the following categories: infrastructure and development, fiscal responsibility, policy, experience, future of Lincolnwood, and public safety.
The questions tonight have been generated by the Lincolnwood community. Based upon the submissions, questions were categorized and selected to ensure a broad range of community topics that could be addressed by the candidates tonight. If you would like to fill out a note card for the Q&A session later this evening, please do so by 7:20. We have ushers in the aisles that you can get a note card from. Please do note that all questions will not be asked tonight due to the time constraints that we have.
Tonight's forum will follow as such. Each candidate will be given the same question to answer for all 6 categories. They will have 90 seconds to respond to each question. We want to remind each candidate that, as agreed upon, this is not a debate, it is a forum. In addition, as forum moderators, we will keep to a strict time frame that has been set and agreed upon by the candidates. Each candidate will have the opportunity to be the first to answer a forum question. We will draw the first name here for introductions, forum, Q&A, and conclusions, and we will then rotate clockwise through each of the candidates. After the forum questions have been asked, the 90-second time will start. We have our students up at the front at this table, this white table, to show you. A green sign will be held up at the start of the 90 seconds. At 15 seconds, you will be advised to wrap up your answer. A yellow sign will be held up to signal this wrap up. At the conclusion of the 90 seconds, a red sign will be then held up by the student, and we will promptly move on to the next candidate.
All right, let's begin this evening as we look forward to hearing from the candidates. We will begin with the introductions. Each candidate is granted 1 minute for an introduction. We will randomly select a name, and this candidate will provide their opening introduction. We will then select another candidate from the remaining names who will go next, and so on. To begin, I will start by selecting the first name, and you will have 1 minute for your introduction. Candidate Spagnoli, you will have 1 minute for your introduction.
I'm humbled to be sitting up here tonight and would like to thank everyone for showing up. I've been asked to tell you who I am. I was born in this village. I was raised here as a child. I delivered papers as a boy. I cleaned tables as a teenager at the Kenilworth Inn where Elwood stands today. I spent the last 35 years in the hospitality business. While becoming a well-respected person in my industry, I have learned that you will never make everyone happy. During my 6 years as president of the Illinois Licensed Beverage Association, I spoke around the country on how my industry has revitalized communities by bringing people together in a social environment. What I am most proud of you ask, well, that would have becoming a father and raising my 2 daughters in this community who have grown up to be 2 beautiful women. What I'm hoping for is that everyone finds happiness and success in this village. That is why I'm running for trustee.
Trustee Sherman, you will have 1 minute.
Good evening. My name is Renan.
Please use mic.
I have had the privilege of living in Lincolnwood with my wife, Roz, for 30 years while raising 6 children along the way. During the day, I'm a practicing attorney. For the past 2 years, I have served as a village trustee after being appointed by Mayor Bass. During this period, there have been many positive developments in the village, especially in the areas of public safety and commercial development, for which I am very proud to be a part. In addition, over the last 2 years, I have been responsible for reviewing all of the village's bills, providing me a deep understanding of where our money goes and allowing me to be a good steward over our precious tax dollars. I am now running for election in order to continue the outstanding progress we started and to bring the village to even greater heights. I'm humbly asking for your support to allow me to do so. Thank you.
Trustee Patel.
Good evening. My name is Jael Patel, and I've been a trustee here in Lincolnwood since 2007. Together with Atur Thomas Sargon and Craig Klatsko, we are running for trustees as the Alliance for Lincolnwood Party. We love Lincolnwood. We are proud to live here and raise our families here. Together, we want to move Lincolnwood forward, along with a board of like-minded residents. Our Alliance slate of 3 trustee candidates brings the education, experience, and track record, which qualifies us as the best to serve our wonderful town. We are committed to working with the mayor and the rest of the board to enact policies that result in improved quality of life for all of our residents, while being good stewards of our finances. I want to take this opportunity to thank District 74 and all of those who organized this event. Together, we look forward to the rest of this night. Thank you.
Candidate Constantino.
Thank you, District 74, for hosting this forum this evening, as well as the esteemed neighbors, and for your attendance and attention. My name is Jennifer Costantino, and it is my pleasure and honor to be here tonight. I have lived in the village for more than half of my life in a multi-generational household. I'm a daughter of first-generation immigrant parents, with Spanish being my first primary language. I'm an extremely proud mother of 2 boys, one a college student who's very close to graduating, and a son who is off to Niles West in the fall. I obtained my master's degree from Lake Forest Graduate School of Management with a specialization in organizational development. Professionally, I am in management at a Fortune 500 company in the healthcare industry. Currently, I'm on the Human Relations Committee, and I'm delighted to be part of having such a positive impact of programs and activities for all of the Lincolnwood community. I appreciate the support of Lincolnwood, and I'm very enthusiastic about the vision of the village going forward.
Candidate Klatsko.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Craig Klatsko, and I'm running again for trustee in the village of Lincolnwood with Atur Sargon and Jael Patel. As many of you know, my family owns Novelty Golf and the Bunny Hutch, which has been a landmark in Lincolnwood for 70 years. I have a degree in public administration focusing on public finance and a master's in teaching. In my life, I've been a paramedic, photojournalist, scout leader, baseball coach, treasurer of our public library, and trustee on our village board, and I've even taught our children in this very building. As trustee, I have served as liaison to the Park Board, the Human Relations Commission, the Police and Fire Board. I've also served as a member of the Committee on Ordinance, Rules, and Building, and have been chairman of the Finance Committee. My education experience make me uniquely qualified to be trustee, and I want to continue serving all of the residents in Lincolnwood. Thank you.
Candidate Sargon.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for being here. My name is Atur Toma Sargon, and I'm a candidate for trustee with the Alliance for Lincolnwood Party alongside Jael Patel and Craig Glasgow. Thank you to SD 74 staff and Mr. Salsky for putting this forum together. I grew up in Lincolnwood and moved back a few years ago with my husband to raise our 2 young children here. Since then, I have been active in our community, serving on our PTA as first vice president and volunteering at various community events. I have made it one of my priorities since moving back to Lincolnwood to learn how the structure of our local government works. I have an undergraduate degree from the University of Illinois and a master's degree from Northwestern, both with a focus on public policy. The guiding principles of our party are service, accountability, and integrity. Given the opportunity, we would be honored to serve our community and all of Lincolnwood. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. Let's begin with our first category, infrastructure and development. We will randomly select a name, and this candidate will be asked the first question. The candidate seated to that person's left will go next. We will continue in this clockwise direction. We ask that you please pass the microphone when the timer is up and the red sign is shown. Trustee Sugarman, you will go first. What is the plan to bring in new business to the village and retain the current businesses that are here?
As you know, since Mayor Bass became the mayor 2 years ago, we have done a tremendous amount of work trying to encourage new businesses and other commercial developers and so forth to come into the village. And we've been very, very successful. As I know you are aware, we have our new project, District 1860, coming in and being developed in the old Purple Hotel site, which will be bringing in, once developed, and which should be starting soon, hopefully, many, many different commercial properties which will enhance and should be able to grow greatly our economy. Let me further talk about infrastructure, because you mentioned that. It's very important to understand, too, that we discovered about a year and a half ago during an infrastructure workshop that, in fact, the village had ignored the infrastructure and done something called kick the can down the road, which essentially means that if something broke, they fix it, but they never dealt with it. And it now has come to a head in that we now have to repair and fix all of the streets and most of the water mains in our village. So therefore, what we've done is figured out a plan in order to figure out the worst streets with the worst mains, and we're going to have to spend tens and tens of millions of dollars in order to repair and fix the infrastructure. However, it's something that has to be done, and we are going to do it. Thank you.
Okay, we are going to move on to candidate Klotzko.
Yes. 1, 2. Testing. 1, 2. All right. We need to take and proactively work with our businesses that come into the village. It's not the village's job to tell a developer what to do, but we need to involve them to act with the residents to bring jobs in, to bring in businesses that will add to our tax base. By working actively with the businesses, we can come up with developments that will not only enhance our village, but won't put any undue problems on the residents.
Okay, now we'll move on to Trustee Patel.
I'll take some of my time if you could just repeat the question for me.
Yep. The question is, what is the plan to bring in new business to the village and retain the current businesses that are here?
Lincolnwood has, on an ongoing basis, revised its code and prepared for changes in the economy and in the marketplace. As changes are
needed or foreseen, we have developed concept plans, we have revised our zoning, and we have instituted new ways to welcome business and to support business. Tax incentives, TIFs, special business areas are all ways to enhance and support the development community. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to candidate Sargon.
Thank you. So I believe that it's really interesting how the village of Lincolnwood was built, and it actually makes it somewhat difficult for new businesses to find a location because a lot of our business locations abut residential, and so we hear a lot of feedback from community members saying that they want certain types of businesses and they want to keep certain businesses away. So I think an important aspect of bringing in new business is to make sure we have a public and open discussion with our community members to hear from them about what they think is important and what we bring to this community. And in order to retain some of these new businesses and old businesses, we should be incentivizing some of the businesses with, I've noticed we've done some green initiative incentives and other incentives to kind of keep those businesses in place. Thank you.
Candidate Spagnoli.
I was appointed in May in 2017 to the Economic Development Commission. Project 1860 has been approved. Portia of Lincolnwood has been approved. Ziegler Cadillac has been given the green light by the village to move forward while not losing one tax dollar from the existing property on McCormick Avenue. That tax revenue has been guaranteed to our village because they have stated that they will increase sales so much that the new Cadillac store will only add to the village's tax roll. Walmart has been approved and under construction currently. Although I have missed 4 meetings in almost 2 years and requested to be present by phone, only once was the village able to patch me through. There's been 5 Economic Development Commission meetings that have been canceled because lack of agenda. My goal is to bring more businesses into this community because we have a lot of property that's sitting empty and available. These are the things that we have to work on the most. We get on the subject of infrastructure. The Alliance Party and the previous administration have budgeted $0 for infrastructure while adopting a pay-as-you-go philosophy. They fell asleep at the wheel in their negotiations with Evanston, resulting in the village paying a higher rate for water. I'm happy and a rock-solid staff that makes this community a strong village.
Thank you. Candidate Costantino.
Hi, so I agree with some of the points that Joe made in terms of that, we need more business that are sales generating in our village. And, we all can agree that having more businesses that are operating in our village is better than not having any businesses. We are aware that there are a lot of vacant properties right now. And so the other big thing that sticks out to me about infrastructure is that, there are a lot of things that you don't see with the water mains, our roads, and things of that nature. Those things do need our prompt attention, and that is something that our party is wanting to work for to make things better.
Thank you, candidates. Audience members, at this time, if you have a no card, could you please turn them in to the student volunteers at this time? Candidates, we will give them just a minute. And student volunteers, please bring them up to the front. Our next category will be fiscal responsibility. We will be starting with Candidate Glasgow. If you received $1 million grant to use for the Village of Lincolnwood any way that you wanted, what would you do with it and why?
Probably the grant would have to be used on upgrading our infrastructure. Over the years, while I was on the Finance Committee, we had a plan to upgrade our infrastructure. We paid off our bonds, we put money in the bank, and we spent $30 million on our infrastructure. Over many, many years since the Alliance Party took over, we've had a plan. We've redone our streets. Crawford's been redone. The sewer's redone. Everything has been repaved throughout the village, and we're starting to do it again. So probably the most important thing we could do would be our infrastructure, and then we could put the money into our parks and our recreation department.
Thank you. Trustee Patel.
Considering how we've budgeted over the last 15 years in Lincolnwood, how we've successfully paid down all our debt, how we've managed to bolster our reserve and obtain the highest possible credit rating for a village of our size, I think the most logical and responsible thing to do would be to take $1 million grant and put it into the pension fund. $1 million grant today, just 10 years from now, could be worth $5 million to the pension fund. That is meaningful to us in the security of our village in the long run. And I think that's the best place we could put $1 million today.
Candidate Sargon.
Thank you. I think with this upcoming water infrastructure update that we are expecting within the village, we all anticipate having a little sense of control with our water bills. We anticipate a lot of water infrastructure. I think the $1 million would be best used towards that project. That way property taxes can stay low and we could use that money towards that grant.
Candidate Spagnoli, I will go ahead and repeat the question. If you received $1 million grant to use for the Village of Linkwood any way you wanted, what would you do with it and why?
Well, I believe infrastructure is obviously most important because there's a lot of streets with potholes that just don't look well in this village, and it needs to be directed there. We've adopted a long-term capital improvement plan that is now in place, supported by a feasible study. Committee in the whole brings transparency to our village on a regular basis. My priorities as trustee would be to get more accomplished with less taxpayer dollars. We will accomplish this by bringing in more dollars to the tax roll, as we've lost millions just on the Purple Hotel site over the last decade plus. Maintaining the village's rating of a AAA+, which has improved over the last administration of a AA+ rating. We can no longer be shifting money from different funds to cover up an unbalanced budget after learning this was the norm in our last administration.
Candidate Costantino.
So I agree that our infrastructure does need some improvement. So for me personally, I would like to see the dollars be invested into our roadways and our water line. The increase on our water tax bill would not be really helpful for everybody. So improving the infrastructure in terms of having our water line and all the infrastructure that's needed to get that created and set up, it's very important, and we don't want to be waiting. We've been kind of late getting ourselves, in that running, I should say.
Trustee Sugarman.
As my running mate, Joe Spagnoli, mentioned, we currently have a long-term capital improvement plan backed by a feasibility study that was undertaken by the mayor and by our most recent administration. We also have taken inventory of the village buildings, roads, and property, and we are at a point we are close to getting a balanced budget. So it would be my recommendation, were we to get $1 million grant, that we use that money to balance our budget so that we don't have to keep borrowing from different funds within the village in order to make sure that we can balance our budget or pay our bills.
Thank you. Our next category will be policy. Trustee Patel, you will be first. Our question is, we know that trustee is a part-time job. What do you think the attendance policy for trustees should be?
As a trustee since 2007, I've spent over 250 meetings on the dais, thousands of hours on the dais and off. This is a serious commitment, and we have serious issues to deal with to serve the 12,590 people that live in this village. I take the responsibility placed in me very seriously, and I do everything I can to attend every meeting. I think every trustee should be expected to attend every single meeting unless there is an emergency or a matter of business which cannot allow you to attend. I personally have attended meetings from India, from California, from Florida, from New York, and Las Vegas. And I think that 100% attendance is what should be expected.
Thank you. Candidate Sargon?
I've spent the past year or so attending village board meetings, CORD meetings, capital improvement meetings, EDC meetings, really to get an understanding of how the structure of our government works. And I really fully understand the commitment it takes to really be prepared for these meetings, the amount of reading and research that goes into being a trustee. And I also agree with my running mate here that there should be 100% attendance unless, of course, in the case of emergency. And I, too, although I'm not a trustee, did watch a meeting from Tokyo last year. So I think it's very important. It takes so much work, so much reading and research, and the policy should be 100% attendance. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Spagnoli?
Well, I think we can all understand that it's a very low-paying position, and I believe that we should all be there as often as we can. But there are personal issues that come into play. We have our own businesses, our own lives, and the homework that's involved, I think, is really more important to put in and really be able to get your opinion across when it counts. And the time that has to be put in is the time for the people and keeping things transparent. We have way too many things that have been slid under the rug. The previous administration gave our village manager an open-ended contract with an automatic renewal. He also received an interest-free loan of $150,000 to be paid down over 15 years. A policy needs to be put into place immediately before it puts any village official in a benefiting position. There's no more room for conflict of interest in our village. These have been the cornerstones on which the Alliance Party has built their platform. So much for full disclosure to the public. Accountability and integrity is their platform. I think not.
Thank you. I will repeat our question. We know that trustee is a part-time job. What do you think the attendance policy for trustees should be? Candidate Costantino.
I believe that the attendance policy for being a trustee for the Village of Lincolnwood is required. You should be there. You should be in attendance. You should be actively participating in the meetings. It should be 100% attendance. If you're unable to attend, try to attend via conference call or whatever method that is available. But what key is also making sure that you're participating and actively having a voice, that there's follow through. You're making a commitment to your community that you're standing, that you want to support and be responsible for the village. So in order to do that, I believe that you need to be actively involved and participating in all meetings.
Thank you. Trustee Sugarman.
Thank you. Unlike a lot of the other trustees on the board, I work downtown. So for me to attend and to make sure to be at all meetings, especially some of the workshops and sometimes early morning meetings, is not that easy. But I make that sacrifice, and it actually costs me money from my business. But I do it. And in fact, I can't even count on one hand the amount of meetings that I probably missed in the last 2 years. So I happen to believe that it's extremely important for a trustee to be able to make himself available as much as possible to attend meetings and to be able to participate. I should also point out that as part of the process, I spend an inordinate amount of time reading materials and going over them prior to coming to meetings and to workshops and so forth, in order to digest and be well aware of the issues that are going to come up and not just actually appear. So attendance is very important, but being totally up on what the issues are is important too. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Klatsko.
Yes. Well, last time when I served on the board, I didn't miss any meetings. I would change my schedule to take and attend the meetings. I also attended all the other meetings because being trustee is not just going to the board meeting. There are many different meetings around the village that you have to go to, different committees, budgets, human relations, and you need to go to each meeting so that you can make an informed decision for the village. Also, I believe that if you're committed to our village, you need to be able to put the time into it. I believe you need to be able to recuse yourself from any actions that you're doing, that you're associated with, or any businesses that you're working with, so that you do not give them special treatment when you're doing it. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. We will now move on to our fourth category, experience. Given your personal and professional experience, what would you bring to the table as a trustee that others don't? Specifically highlighting experiences where you have worked to be as a consensus builder. We will begin with candidate Sargon.
I am the daughter of Assyrian immigrants, and growing up, one of the things they instilled in me was to work hard and to be honest and have integrity. And so growing up, my parents taught us the value of being a good public servant. And I think public service goes into being a good trustee. Growing up, volunteering on many nonprofits and giving back to my community was just something that I always did. As I mentioned before, I do have an undergraduate degree from the University of Illinois in political science and a master's degree from Northwestern in public policy. Within the core studies of grad school, I studied city budgeting, urban planning, subjects that really prepared me to serve in this kind of position. Specifically, village managers of local municipalities generally hold the degrees that I currently have. And so I think I come well equipped to serve. I serve here on our PTA as our first vice president, where we host many community events. We try to engage parents and the community. We really look to our peers and friends and mentors to be a part of the conversation. And although the trustees will be the ones that speak on behalf of the community, we too have to speak on behalf of the rest of the constituents. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Spagnoli.
I've employed thousands of hardworking people over the 35 years in my industry. My experience of being in the hospitality of business has shown me how to deal with people on a daily basis, which include all factions of the public, and bringing them together and making everybody happy is not the easiest job in the world. I had a long tenure with the Illinois Licensed Beverage Association, which gave me world of experience of how neighborhoods needing to be redeveloped rely on our hospitality industry to regentrify communities. These types of businesses leave their lights on at night, which make for a much safer community. And you need to be out in the evenings, and you need to be out in the mornings to see what's really going on in your village. And I just have seen this happen. I've spoke on this subject all around the country while living it firsthand where my business is currently located in the Wrigleyville community. I've been involved in multiple real estate deals as well as consulting in different types of businesses from the hospitality construction.
Thank you. Candidate Costantino.
So I have a broad business experience. I'm a management professional with extensive experience in diverse roles within sales, finance, sales operations, customer service, strategy, project management, marketing, RFPs. I've really worked myself up through the corporate ladder and a lot of the careers that I've had. I'm an MBA graduate with specialization in organizational development and healthcare. I'm a highly motivated, I'm very detailed-oriented individual. I'm very analytical. I have a proven track record to generate results. I have excellent organizational and project management skills and leadership skills. And I have a demonstrated ability to network and work collaboratively with all my stakeholders.
Thank you. I will repeat the question. Given your personal and professional experience, what would you bring to the table as a trustee that others don't? specifically highlighting experiences where you have worked to be a consensus builder.
As I mentioned in my opening, I'm an attorney by practice and by trade. One of the main things that I participate in is arbitrations and mediations. I serve as an arbitrator on large disputes, and I also mediate a lot of large disputes which involve warring parties and people who are on opposite sides and very unhappy. I'm able to use my skills as a mediator and as an attorney to bring a consensus, to bring people together, to settle those cases. I think I probably have about a 90-some percent, 99% rate of settling most of the matters that come before me, even with the most contentious of parties going on, because I know how to find the common ground and bring a consensus. The other thing, which is a very important skill that helps me with this and which also helps me in the village, is I'm able to read and process very large amounts of information very, very quickly. And that, again, allows me to bring a very special skill to the village. And finally, I'm very good when it comes to budgets. I'm the one who pays all the bills in the village. I review every single bill twice a month, stacks this high, to make sure that we're not overpaying or losing any type of money. As one of the trustees always jokes to me, I'm glad I'm not your wife. And that's a very important skill I have, which I think is very, very beneficial to the village.
Thank you. Candidate Glasgow.
Yes, in my life I've been a paramedic and I've worked in public safety, so I know the needs of our departments, our police and fire departments. I've been a photojournalist where I've traveled around the world, worked in multiple languages with multiple different cultures and languages where I've been able to deal with the people. I've also been a director of a small lake homeowners association where we built a $1.5 million pool system. I've been the treasurer of our public library that has always remained financially stable. I've also been the chairman of our finance committee while I was on the village board, where we never had a deficit budget. I bring a lot to the table with my experience from around the world, and as a teacher, I know how to work collaboratively with other people.
Thank you. Trustee Patel.
Our resumes are available at allianceforlincolnwood.com. Mine is quite long. I've been a trustee here since 2007, and I've served in virtually every capacity a trustee can serve in. I've been liaison to every board and commission. I've attended many hundreds of meetings. I also have an extensive professional career which relates to local government. I've been a commercial real estate developer and professional since 1997, wherein I've developed millions of square feet of real estate, managed millions of square feet of real estate, and dealt with tenants large and small across the country. But most important, just like Craig in a tour, I'm a lifelong student. And just because I learned something in 1996 or in 2006 doesn't mean that I don't have an opportunity to learn again and again and again. I attend many seminars of the Northwest Municipal Conference, provided by our village attorney's office, and every opportunity I can find, whether through the International Council of Shopping Centers, the Asian American Hotel Owners Association. I lobby in Washington, D.C. and in Springfield to learn about national and state issues that affect us here in Lincolnwood. I'm constantly striving to gather more information to serve Lincolnwood better and to be a better trustee. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next category will be public safety. Candidate Spagnoli, you will be first. Our question is, some people in our community say that we have a traffic problem. What do you think? How would you mitigate those concerns or change the situation?
Well, I think the first concern is probably Project 1860. We have to have that ingress and egress off of Lincoln Avenue to alleviate the traffic concerns that we currently have on Toohey. There's a lot of things that we have that are current resources with the police department that have done an outstanding job here in helping keep things moving. I think that a lot of the concerns that we have around the shopping mall and possibly creating more traffic or driving more business there could help alleviate some of the congestion that's in the center of the village.
Thank you. Candidate Costantino.
Can you please repeat the question?
Of course. Some people in our community say that we have traffic problems. What do you think? How would you mitigate these concerns or change the situation?
Well, that is true. There are some areas within the village where the traffic is more congested. So, for example, by the Tui and Cicero area, by the future 1860 site. Those areas, yeah, there is a lot of traffic. You know, we really depend on IDOT to help the village to kind of help enforce and, you know, work through some of those issues. There are some things that, you know, even in the small areas within where we live, some improvements were put in to help reduce some of the excessive speeding, such as the roundabouts or the speed bumps. Those have helped, but, you know, there are times where basically where our village is located, there are areas where there are pockets where people can just kind of get through pretty quickly and it doesn't help. You know, we do have stop signs and we have warnings, but, you know, it's just the nature of the village where we are. We're so close to the city. There are a lot of times within the traffic that's, you know, causing extreme traffic. I know the concern could be with the new property coming on 1860, what are we looking to do to help improve that or reduce that? So again, we'd be working with IDOT to make sure that we are helping to keep that at a normal pace.
Thank you. Trustee Sugarman?
Thank you. I would reiterate what my running mates have just indicated. We are working currently with engineers and we'll be working with IDOT to make sure we keep traffic at a reasonable level as possible. Now, obviously, it's not always easy, and again, it's District 1860 that's going to be possibly creating additional traffic congestion. However, as I mentioned, we are working with the proper outside sources and engineers as well as our staff, which are excellent in trying to make sure to alleviate this problem. I would also mention under the subject of public safety that I think most of you probably know, or if you're not, you should be aware that we hired a new police chief within the last 2 years, and public safety and the police department, our numbers are really pretty good, and the new police chief is outstanding and excellent, and everyone is extremely happy, especially the rank and file of the police department, which has just improved our public safety greatly. So you should, it's something I am very, very proud of, as I mentioned, that I could be part of that, and it's important, if you don't know, to go and get to know our new police chief, Jael Patel. He's a phenomenal police chief and a phenomenal human being. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Klatsko, I will repeat the question. Some people in our community say that we have traffic problems. What do you think? How would you mitigate these concerns or change the situation?
Lincolnwood is a very unique community. We have 4 state routes that run through our town. IDOT, which is the Illinois Department of Transportation, regulates these routes. They determine exactly what goes on them. So all we can do in Lincolnwood is to appeal to them to help alleviate the problem. One of the major problems that we have in this town is the cut-through traffic on our streets. And while I was on the board and under the Alliance Party, we instituted many different traffic calming things, whether it's speed bumps or turnabouts in the center of the roads on intersections. We also took and added stop signs, yield signs. We've done our best to slow it down. We have the finest police department in the area. They're very well trained and well equipped. All we can do is help them enforce the laws and add what the residents want to slow it down, because everybody doesn't always want the same thing.
Thank you. Trustee Patel?
Traffic is constantly changing. We understand that as members of government. With new development comes additional traffic, which must be managed. As Craig said, we have 4 state roadways which bisect and border our village. What we do as a board to best serve the village is to rely on our professional staff and engineers to recommend changes that we can then advocate for to those agencies such as the Illinois Department of Transportation or the Cook County Department of Transportation, just as we did at the corner of Tui and Cicero, where we're going to be making traffic changes to the exit from the Edens as well as turn lanes from Cicero onto Tui, just as we made changes at Devon and Central to allow for a turn lane to go in, Just as we add streetlights and crosswalks and sidewalks, we manage our issues, but we definitely must rely on staff and our professional engineers that work for the village, as I don't believe any of the members of the board are certified traffic engineers. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Sargon.
As I've been canvassing and campaigning these past few months, neighbors have definitely echoed those sentiments that we have an issue with traffic. And I agree with my running mates here on a lot of issues, but more specifically that we need to utilize IDOT, village staff, and professionals to help alleviate that traffic. I also want to add another point is that I encourage public involvement. And so as we're knocking and people are telling us, okay, there's a development coming, what can we anticipate with traffic? I think it's important that during this process that we make those concerns public and attend village board meetings or email village staff and say, you know, I live at this intersection, what can I expect and how can I help participate in this decision-making process? Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. Our final category is the future of Lincolnwood. What is your dream for Lincolnwood? We will start with candidate Costantino.
My dream for Lincolnwood is that it is a community that I can continue to live in, also that my children can grow up and, you know, I can be a grandmother here, and it's a first, second, third generation. It's a community that we all have grown and love. There are, in my opinion, things are heading in that direction, but we have a lot of work to do. I'm only really trying to do good work for the village, for my community, my friends that I've met along the way, and family. I just really love Lincolnwood. I really want to see it succeed. It's, a gem. It's a hidden gem. We're so close to the city, but we have the nice, quiet suburban life. We have wonderful schools. We've had so much improvements here to District 74. Niles West is an amazing school. I just want to continue having that people who really want to do what's best for the village mindset.
Thank you. Trustee Sugarman.
Thank you. My dream for the village, number one and most importantly, is that it returns to the safe, beautiful place it was many years ago when I was never afraid to walk outside, whether it was day or night, late at night, and that my children were safe and could ride their bikes and go out at night without having to be worried about something happening. In the last 2 years, as I mentioned, we've hired a new police chief against a lot of opposition. He's also hired and put in a new deputy police chief, and our safety has improved greatly. And that's, to me, the most important thing by far, and it needs to keep happening. We need to be able to have a place where we can live and raise our children, and now I have grandchildren, where we can feel safe that our kids can go out at night and not have to worry about being hijacked or their cars being stolen or someone even coming and attacking them, putting guns to their head and so forth, that was going on for a while in our neighborhood. So my dream, and I think we're getting there, and I believe we will continue to get there if you allow us to do our job as trustees, is to have a very safe, beautiful Lincolnwood. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Glasgow.
Yes, my view of the future of Lincolnwood is to continue our good fiscal policy. I don't want people going out and spending money and taxing us to death. I believe we need to develop our empty and underutilized commercial spaces. I think we need to encourage the redevelopment of our aging housing stock. I think we need to promote unity in our community and celebrate our diversity. Lincolnwood is a safe, wonderful place to grow our families. Our children walk out down the street safely. They go to this beautiful school. We don't have crime in Lincolnwood. It's just such a safe, wonderful place. I've grown up here. My kids have grown up here. And we have the best police department. I feel safe everywhere we go.
Thank you. I will repeat the question. What is your dream for Lincolnwood? Trustee Patel.
I'm going to reiterate a lot of what my running mate said. My family moved here when I was just 4 years old, and I'm still at the home that I moved into at 6733 North St. Louis. I went to all of these schools here, and I never thought to leave Lincolnwood. My dream is that Lincolnwood continues on that path, that we continue to add diversity, to add tolerance, to grow the love for this village that the residents have, that I know many of you share with me. I care about this place tremendously, and I know that my children do too. And I want them to have better than I had. And I know that with this school and with our community, we will have that. And it needs good government, but it comes from, this place here is very special. And the children here, that's our future. And we are the example for them. We need to be leaders for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Sargon.
17 years ago, there was a teacher from this school here who made an impact on my youngest sister, and he inspired her to become a teacher. As a result of the impact he had on her life, she is currently teaching at Elizabeth Meyer School, and that teacher is Mr. Salsky. So I just wanted to share that story. And the reason that I share that story is because this is what my dream for Lincolnwood is that we have leaders in our community that will continue to impact the lives of our future generations. It is our responsibility as leaders to lead by example, to make an impact on people's lives. And that's what my dream for Lincolnwood is. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Spagnoli.
My future for Lincolnwood, I think, since I've been on the Economic Development Commission, I've seen things moving towards the right track for success. Let's keep that moving forward in the positive direction. A safe Lincolnwood is my dream. In 2018, there was a 26% reduction in Part 1 crimes compared to 2017. The Facebook and Twitter pages that the police have put together make me smile on a daily basis as a resident. While reminding us to simply lock our doors on our vehicles nightly at 9 p.m., as well as the other messages that should simply be a part of our daily routine. The message they send daily highlighting the officers in the department must be one of the best forms of community policing I've ever seen. That's what's going to make Lincolnwood safe for our kids. Cops and coffee? I can't think of a better way to get to know our personnel. I was presented with a Lifetime Achievement Award by our police department in 2006. I've seen a lot of the personnel come and go over the years, but have never seen the rank and file so happy to come to work to a job where they're putting their lives on the line for us daily as residents. We owe this to our current administration for bringing Chief Parrott into our community. This is my vision of Lincolnwood, a place where kids can play again on the streets.
Thank you, candidates. Now we will move to the second portion of the forum, which consists of a question and answer opportunity for the community and candidates. These questions will be directed towards specific candidates. Some of these questions have been submitted by the Lincolnwood community through the Lincolnwood Google form, while the other questions have been generated by the audience.
Due to the number of questions that we've had, not only here and online, and the time frame of this forum, we will not be able to ask all of the questions that have been generated. We apologize for that. As a result, each candidate will be asked a few questions during the session that have been directed to them by the community. The other candidates will not have an opportunity to respond or give a rebuttal.
Lastly, each candidate will receive the same number of questions and have 1 minute to respond to each. Let's begin with our questions. We will randomly select a name, and this candidate will be asked his or her question. The candidate seated to that person's left will go next. We ask that you please pass the microphone when the timer and the red sign is shown.
Candidate Spagnoli, you will be going first, and then we will go in that order. Candidate Spagnoli, your question is, are you someone who is capable of knowing you have done something wrong, and are you the kind of person who is willing to apologize? Do you have an example?
As a matter of fact, I do. You know, I've employed thousands of hardworking people over the 35-year career, and once, only once, has someone filed a complaint against me, which I subsequently learned was a pattern for this person. I was never arrested. I was never prosecuted for this accusation. The former employee was terminated for stealing cash from my business. I paid a $50 fine, a municipal fee for an ordinance violation. I apologize to my staff. I apologize to my family. But I've also spent time and resources of this whole thing coming to light that has made me realize that, I've admitted to a traffic ticket for speeding too. And I paid that $165 fine.
Thank you. Candidate Costantino, you will be next. Your question is, how can Lincolnwood welcome everyone if there are some people who don't respect our community?
So we can welcome everyone by all of us having the same mindset and welcome to everyone, right? So you mentioned that there are some people that just don't respect our community. So in terms of respecting us, how, I guess, would be a question I would pose back to you, but that's not part of the question. So how someone would not respect our community, I guess it would maybe be from them not feeling welcomed or feeling that there's, multiple different types of ethnicities in here. But I do feel that personally for myself of having raised my son here, having a biracial son here, he's never felt not welcomed by anybody. And me as his mother, I've never felt that way either. So thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Sugarman, you've supported a water rate decrease and using meter fees and property taxes to pay for the cost to switch water supplier from Chicago to Evanston. Please explain why.
Can you read that question again? I didn't understand the question.
Please do not start the time. You've supported a water rate decrease and using meter fees and property taxes to pay for the cost to switch water supplier from Chicago to Evanston. Please explain why.
Oh, absolutely. If anyone came to any of those meetings, ultimately by switching to Evanston, we are going to lower drastically the water rates that we're paying presently for our water in Lincolnwood. The city of Chicago, where we get our water from now, has absolutely annihilated us. They've raised water 15%, sometimes 2 or 3 years in a row. While it may cost us some money on the front end to join Evanston, ultimately it's going to end up reducing our water costs dramatically, and it's going to end up bringing much savings to our residents. If anyone wants to watch some of those workshops and meetings, committees of the whole, where this was discussed and presented, you'll see that staff did specific studies as to how much money we were going to ultimately save because of our connecting to Evanston. The only problem was that our prior administration failed to act as fast as they should have, and we would have gotten an even better rate had they done so than what we're actually going to be paying.
Thank you. Candidate Klatsko, how will you prepare for board meetings? How will you prepare for board meetings?
We used to receive our packets way ahead of time where we would read them. And I believe in doing my research and by attending all the meetings lead up to the board meeting, because before something comes for board action, it goes through the zoning commission or it goes through the planning commission or the police and fire. So by attending the other meetings, I become very well prepared, reading all my packets, answering questions, talking to the village staff, make sure that I know exactly what's going on so that I can make an informed decision that's going to equally affect all the residents in town.
Thank you. Trustee Patel, if a trustee feels strongly about a matter, but his or her position is not supported by the board, how should this trustee conduct him or herself?
If a trustee feels strongly about a matter and does not have support from the other members, it's best to raise logical reasons why there should be support and try to engage in discourse. There isn't always agreement when you're sitting on a dais with 6 other members, but there is a way to work through a disagreement. You can't always win, but each member should have their opportunity to have their position stated and supported.
Thank you. Candidate Sargon, what would you do if you felt strongly about an issue but did not have the support of the other trustees?
Well, I think it's important to present both sides to an issue, do the research, and reach out to each trustee individually and on the dais there at the village. As much backup and support, expertise, opinion that you can bring to the table will definitely help change the mind or get people on board to agree with a decision.
Thank you. Our next round of questions. Candidate Spagnoli, what do you like best about Lincolnwood?
Where do I begin? March 3rd was my start of my 55th year here in Lincolnwood. As I said it earlier, I was born here. I think one of the things that I admire the most about Lincolnwood was be able to roam all of these streets as a child. And I've seen every inch of it. I know every backyard. I know every shortcut through every neighbor's home. I've enjoyed living here immensely. That's why I was one of the first people, 27 years ago to tear down an older home and rebuild, because I wanted to raise my family here. That's honestly what I love about Lincolnwood. I want to see the kids out playing again and not stuck inside the house.
Thank you. Candidate Costantino, Lincolnwood has become extremely polarized. If elected, which faction of Lincolnwood will you represent?
Wow, that's a tough question. So for me, the one thing that really sticks out to me in the community is our public safety. I know we've talked about that earlier on the forum today, but for me, it's really important that we continue having a vigilant mindset with all of our community members. It's important that we speak up when we see something and just be a little bit more vigilant, get involved in some of the neighborhood watch communities just to keep our neighborhood safe.
Thank you. Trustee Sugarman, according to the real estate tax bill I recently paid, there's a shortage of $26,144,377, or 63.68% in pension and health care costs we need to pay. What are your plans for fully funding our pension obligations?
Well, from my understanding from being on the board, we are in good shape with benchmark funding of our pensions. So I'm not entirely sure what's being referenced in that bill. But we are also bringing in new folks to the table. And that's the whole idea, is to raise the amount of people who come into the village, raise our population, increase, and bring in more commercial business. We lost, Carson's closed, we lost a lot of sales tax there. We have to and will find another tenant for that space. So, we've met our obligations, and we should be actually fully funded in our pensions, I think, 4 years early. So we're doing everything we can. I mean, look at the development of District 1860. That's going to bring a lot of extra revenue to the village. So I'm doing everything in my power to increase the taxes and revenue that will flow into the village from commercial tenants coming into the village.
Thank you. Candidate Klatsko, how do you plan to involve residents in the decision-making process in our town?
I believe that having open forums with the residents and listening to them, and that's what we need to do. We are elected to listen and respectfully respond to the residents' questions. Our job as trustee is to evaluate all of the possibilities that can happen, talk to our experts, and then involve the community in coming up with the solution, because we serve the people of Lincolnwood and they need to be treated with respect, and we need to listen to them.
Thank you. Trustee Patel, how should one show respect to their neighbors, and how do you actively show respect to them?
There's so many ways to show respect for your neighbors. as simple as a smile and a wave. Point out if a door's been left open or if a hose is found rutting. I live a life of respect for my neighbor and my fellow resident. What I try to teach is acceptance and tolerance to my family and try to practice that to my friends and my business colleagues alike. I can't really define respect. It's really a way of life, and I think everyone who interacts with me sees that I'm a respectful person. I try to set the example that was set by my parents, and I hope that I'm following it.
Thank you. Candidate Sargon, what steps would you take to attract more young families to Lincolnwood?
I think there are a lot of steps we can take to attract more young families to Lincolnwood. Being a young family in Lincolnwood and working closely with our PTA and our school district and talking to parents regularly, I hear from them directly what they like about Lincolnwood, what they want to see done differently. And I think I am a unique person to serve on this board because I do bring that fresh perspective. And I don't see anyone else in a similar situation. Sorry, guys. I think given the opportunity, I do bring that fresh new perspective, and I definitely do represent some of the population in our community that currently doesn't have a voice.
So candidates, we have received some questions here tonight as well. We're going to throw something a little bit at you, just a little differently. We're going to have all of you respond to these questions, if that is okay with you. We are just going to pick randomly, and that person will start first, and we will just follow in that same clockwise manner. There will still be 1 minute. Yes. I'll start with the question first. 2 years ago, the Human Relations Commission voted to continue our flags of diversity display along Lincoln Avenue. However, the current administration dismissed the recommendation. What is your stance on this issue? And the name that has been chosen first is candidate Spagnoli.
Well, I believe we all know that we have an extremely diverse community, and everybody needs to be represented equally. And it seems that just didn't happen with the last flag program. And that's just not fair to everybody. It's something that should be proudly displayed, throughout our village, but we have to make sure that everybody's represented. It's a diverse community that makes a happy village, and it's time that we all start getting along. I don't want to see people divided. I want to see people brought together. That's what this community needs.
Thank you. Candidate Costantino.
So with the diversity flag program, I feel that, it is important that we have representation of the diverse community that the village holds. That goes without saying. Perhaps maybe some sort of ceremony commemorating the flags being placed would help people feel more welcomed. Making sure that every individual, their flag, their country is represented. I think that would also help.
Thank you. Trustee Sugarman?
In theory, I'm very much in favor of the concept. Unfortunately, rather than promoting diversity, it appears that the flags created serious discord. So my position would be, I am in favor of the idea, but I think, and it would be acceptable and vote for it, but we need to have some type of defined rules. There has to be very specific rules in place as to what flags are appropriate or not. And I believe that was what caused a lot of the ultimate decision not to have the flags, is they couldn't come to any type of an agreement specifically as to the rules. So if we can come up with acceptable rules that everyone will agree to, I don't have any problem at all with the flags. I think in theory it's a great idea.
Thank you. Candidate Glasgow, I will repeat the question for you. 2 years ago, the Human Relations Commission voted to continue our flags of diversity display along Lincoln Avenue. However, the current administration dismissed this recommendation. What is your stance on this issue?
100% for having the display. In our village, we celebrate the fact that we speak 57 languages. I think that if somebody moves to Lincolnwood and they want to have their flag representing their culture, it should be flying.
Thank you. Trustee Patel?
I am in support of the recommendation that came from the Human Relations Commission to reinstate the flag display program, along with the guidelines that they set forth. I think that they were fair and equitable, and overwhelmingly, I think that that display shows how many people can come from many different places, but once we live in Lincolnwood, we can all live harmoniously. And what a flag represents outside of our borders has nothing to do with the people who live here.
Thank you. Candidate Sargon?
I'm also in favor of the HRC's recommendation to reinstate the flags. Coming from an Assyrian family growing up here in Lincolnwood, our neighbors were all from diverse backgrounds, and seeing those flags flown were really a representation of who we are as a community. And it's a constant reminder to us and to our children that this is who we are as a community. So I am in favor of it, and I would like to see them back up.
Thank you. I will draw another name to see who will go first. Candidate Klatsko. Our question is, how do you distinguish between the two parties? What is your first priority and action you will take upon election?
We are all independent people, and we have come together as an alliance to represent everybody in Lincolnwood. We all have our own special I'm a teacher and I lost it. We all have our own special strengths, okay? And we bring something to the table in our passion for this town. I mean, I love Lincolnwood. I think that we believe that Lincolnwood is a unique place to live, and everyone can live in harmony, and we can build a future for our families.
Thank you. Trustee Patel?
Could you repeat the question?
Of
Sorry
course.
about that.
How do you distinguish between the two parties, and what is your first priority and action that you will take upon election?
So I will say the Alliance Party loves Lincolnwood, wants to help Lincolnwood, and wants to move Lincolnwood forward. I don't know how we distinguish from the other. My first step that I would like to take after this election is over is to return to a council manager form of government, first by ordinance and then by presentation of a referendum at the next election, so that the village of Lincolnwood can decide if this village should be run by a board which needs consensus and professional management, or if we want to allow one elected mayor to be able to decide the course of the village.
Candidate Sargon.
Thank you. The differences between the two parties, I think that's a difficult question, but I think that the public here will have a good opportunity to gauge the differences and make their decisions between the two parties. But from my perspective, what we bring to the table is that we come from diverse backgrounds, we are highly qualified, we're highly motivated, and we are here to represent all of Lincolnwood, and those are our core values. In addition to that, what's my first priority? I actually wrote these two things down, and one was to reinstate the flags, so that was answered, and the second was to echo Jasel's sentiment to return back to the council manager form.
Thank you. Candidate Spagnoli, I will repeat the question. How do you distinguish between the two parties? What is your first priority and action that you will take upon election?
Well, I think there are a lot of different views on how the village has been run in the past and how it needs to be run in the future. And it's really trying to get everybody on the same path. And I think we're on that path. And I think with bringing everybody together and having a new breath of fresh air into the village board is only going to make Lincolnwood a much better place.
Thank you. Candidate Costantino.
So how do we distinguish against both parties? You guys have read about us, you've talked with us, you're here at this forum, we all can come with our own conclusion and opinion on, who brings what to the table. I think that we can agree that we all are diverse. We all have some strengths, some have some weaknesses, but with that, we can all work together. I know that for Lifelong for Lincolnwood, we love Lincolnwood as well. I love Lincolnwood. We all have a vision and a mission to continue the continued growth for the village. We want to see this to be a safe town for our residents, for the people who live here. We want to attract new businesses. We want people to stay. We want our children to thrive and grow within our community.
Thank you. Trustee Sugarman?
I think it's easy to distinguish between the two parties. The Alliance Party is the old. It's the past. Lifelong for Lincolnwood, we're the future. All you have to do is look at what's going on in the village in the last 2 years. It's very clear that the progress that's being made is due to our progressive policies and understanding of what needs to be done in the village, and not the tired kick the can down the road. That's not the way that the village should be run. If I am elected, the first thing I would do would be to ask whether it's our outside counsel or staff to draft a policy with regard to conflicts of interest for trustees. That seems to be a major issue for some of the trustees who own property and businesses within the village, yet manage to vote and participate in decisions on the board. And I think it's very, very important from an ethics standpoint to have proper policy in place with regard to addressing conflicts of interest.
Thank you. Our next question. The reason exchange between trustees at the village meeting on March left me disturbed. I have been a proud resident of the village for 35 years, but that evening felt very uncomfortable. What action or strategies do you propose to implement in order to avoid a similar situation in the future? And what will you do to bring respect and understanding among the trustees and the public? Please, no finger pointing, only what strategies do you plan to implement? I will pick a name. Trustee Patel, you are first.
So I'll go back to the last question regarding respect. And everything relates to respect for one another. Throughout our lives, we will come to points where we have disagreements. And ultimately, when we deal with other people, we must have respect. There's never a situation where somebody should be harassed or intimidated or abused. Instead, voice your feelings, share your concerns, and move on. Respect is what I ask of all my fellow board members and fellow residents and fellow human beings. It's very little to ask. It's very easy to do.
Thank you. Candidate Sargon.
I, too, was deeply disturbed by that meeting. As a woman, as a candidate for trustee, I looked on to that dais in shock. And I shouldn't say shock, because really this has been I feel like the sense that we've been getting from our local government. And I think that how we can overcome that and deal with that is by leading by example. When we respect one another, then we too will be respected. I think the only way that we can move forward is to take a step back and to think about why we're all doing this, why we are up here today before you trying to earn your votes. And in addition to that, I would also recommend a zero tolerance policy with harassment or bullying to protect future trustees and future members of our community.
Thank you. Candidate Spagnoli.
Well, frankly, I was at that meeting as well and left with a very sick feeling in my stomach at the end of the night. I felt that if freedom of speech was to be heard, it needed to be heard on both sides. I sat on one side of the room while the other side of the room would not let my colleague talk and express his First Amendment right. That's not right. I love the fact that we've got peace through this whole meeting tonight and people can say what they want to say, but I believe that what happened there last week was absolutely staged, and I believe that it's all because of Trustee Patel not taking up, and if he would sit here tonight and apologize to this community for stealing.
Audience, please.
This is just what I'm talking about. Apparently, I can't say what I have to say.
Time. Thank you. Audience. Thank you. I will repeat the question for you. The recent exchange between trustees at the village meeting on March 5th left me disturbed. I've been a proud resident of the village for 35 years, but that evening felt very uncomfortable. What action or strategies do you propose to implement in order to avoid a similar situation in the future? And what will you do to bring respect and understanding among the trustees and public? Please, no finger pointing, only what strategies you plan to implement.
So I will also say that I was also disturbed. I am running for trustee. I've been attending some board meetings, and just the actions of, as a trustee, we all need to respect each other on either slate, right? But it's also the public. The public also needs to then extend the same amount of respect to the trustees, to the mayor, to their other community members who are in attendance of the meeting. It seemed as if there were some underlying issues going on at that evening that caused some disarray and caused this outburst. You asked about what measures should be put in place. So yes, we have the public forum. People should be able to come and voice their opinion, but it has to be done respectfully.
Thank you. Trustee Sugarman?
Thank you. I made my comments specifically with regard to that incident, and I'm not going to repeat them here. But I do believe in respect, and I do respect people, and I believe people respect me and will show me the same. I will tell you that in order to, I think, build more respect, there needs to be some change in behavior for certain types of things. For example, over the course of 2 years as trustee, I've received 3 or 4 anonymous letters sent to my house mocking me, making fun of me, showing pictures of me on the dais and things of that sort. That's not respect. That's not nice. I don't act that way. I act with respect, and I would ask that people in the village who sent those letters and created fake Facebook accounts to make fun of the mayor and so forth, stop doing that. That does not help respect, and that does not improve discourse. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Glasgow.
As a teacher, and many of you know in our schools, we preach anti-bullying. We teach our children that it is not an acceptable thing to do to other people. As adults, as trustees, we must lead by example. One of the things that I will do is I will ensure that we have a strong anti-bullying and harassment ordinance put in place, so if somebody does that, they're censured. I don't believe that it's right, and if you see what's going on in the news this year, it takes one woman to stand up against it, and then other people follow along. Thank you.
Thank you. That is the conclusion of our Q&A session. We will now go to closing remarks. Each candidate is granted 1 minute for closing remarks. We will randomly select a name, and this candidate will provide their closing statement. We will then select another candidate from the remaining names who will go on, and so on. Candidate Glasgow, you have 1 minute for your closing remark.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming this evening. My family has always believed in public service. My father was chief of police in Northfield. My grandfather was captain of the Chicago Police Department. I was a paramedic and a scout leader. As a scout leader, we teach our children the scout law. My father taught it to me. I taught it to my children, and I've taught it to many of your children too. It goes like this. A scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. These are great words to live by, and the qualities that we need in our trustees. I believe Atur, Jael, and I have the education, experience, and qualifications to continue keeping our village financially stable and providing the leadership to our community to guide us to the future. We want to serve all of Lincolnwood. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Sugarman.
This election Thank you. This election presents you with a very stark choice. On the one hand, you have Trustee Jael Patel and his old tired alliance party with their legacy of unsuccessful development projects, Exhibit A, the Purple Hotel site, and their pay-as-you-go, kick-the-can-down-the-road infrastructure policies so that we now have to spend tens of millions of dollars to repair and replace what they neglected all these years. Joining him is Craig Klatsko, whose most notable accomplishments are the appropriation of a village street for a private parking lot and the inclusion of his property in a TIF district. Contrast that with Trustee Sugarman, yours truly. I do not own any commercial property or business in the village. I am not a real estate broker, and I do not have any conflicts of interest. What I am is the person trusted to watch the village's money. No one has ever questioned or raised a doubt about my integrity in doing so. I am proud of that. I started by saying you have a choice. The reality is there is no choice. There is only one way to vote.
Thank you, Trustee Sugarman.
Renan Sugarman and the lifelong for Lincolnwood Party.
Candidate.
Thank you.
Candidate Costantino.
As your potential future trustee, I'm committed to listening to all of you and working hard to continue to progress our village. I have a proven ability to collaborate with many stakeholders, cross-functionally to determine a common ground, develop solutions, and analyze information objectively, which will be an asset to the village as we face decisions. Lincolnwood needs a trustee with a vision that wants to move forward, but still respecting our community and the gem that it is. I pledge to be prudent with finance and to represent all the people of Lincolnwood. This will be completed because I will act without prejudice, conflict of interest, or ulterior motives. As we wrap up tonight, I want to leave you with this quote from Margaret Mead. Never doubt that a few thoughtful citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. Your vote makes a difference, and your opinion matters. I respectfully ask for your vote and look forward to serving you.
Thank you. Trustee Patel.
I'm immensely proud and honored to be able to sit here on this stage today. When I wrote this speech in my head, I was saying standing, because the last time I stood on this stage, I was in 8th grade. It was 1989. It was trying out for the talent show here. I didn't make it. But I think what I learned here in this building and on this campus and living in this town my whole life is respect and pride for where I live and who raised me. And I understand that it takes a village to make a person. And it's everything here in the village of Lincolnwood that's made me who I am. And I'm so proud to have my kids here tonight and my wife here tonight and so many friends here in the room. I love Lincolnwood. I love to serve Lincolnwood. I do it selflessly. I spend so much time away from my family and my business, but I do it out of love. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Sargon.
That's okay. The first thing I'd like to do is thank everyone who came out tonight to show their commitment to our community and our shared future. When I look around this room, I see Lincolnwood. Lincolnwood is a diverse community made up of people from all over the world. Our school district is one that serves a community where approximately 56 languages are spoken. We have people who've lived here for decades. People like my parents who came here to give my sisters and I better opportunities through this school district. And new people moving in every day. Regardless of where or how long you've lived here, we're committed to serving you. I humbly ask for your support of the Alliance for Lincolnwood slate, a slate that stands for service, accountability, integrity, and all of Lincolnwood. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Spagnoli.
On April 2nd, we choose a path for our future. The Alliance Party has run its course and no longer serves the best interest of our village. The bullying accused at our last board meeting doesn't hold a candle to the intimidation for simply putting a lifelong for Lincolnwood sign in your front yard. Trustee Patel leads the Alliance Party, running on a platform of integrity while choosing not to pay his fair share of property taxes, while making his living as a licensed real estate broker. Now,
audience.
Now he is taking orders from a bank teller advising him to break the law in 50 states by tearing up signs and littering our streets. Candidate Klatsko attempted a 4-year run as trustee while the only thing he accomplished was to commandeer Monticello Avenue for his own personal gain that will be repaved with the village tax dollars.
Thank you.
This concludes the Lincolnwood Candidates Forum. We'd like to thank the candidates for their participation, as well as the community, the Board of Education of District 74, and our administrators, and of course, our student volunteers. Thank you very much.